Good evening and welcome to All for United on this Halloween evening. So with it being Halloween, I was told to get the scariest two guests that I could find. So I did. I got Daz and I got Adam. How are we tonight, boys? How are you, Daz?
I'm good.
How are you?
I'm actually feeling a lot better. It's nice to come on and have a match reaction and actually smile.
It is.
I mean, your brain tells you that a manager hasn't made that much improvement in one training session. There's so ways that we're going to break it down tonight but it's just nice to smile. I mean, I actually made the joke the other day, just give it to Ollie, because at least we'll smile again. I think it helps that it's a club legend, because I was saying in live today that we want these people to do well as United fans, regardless of whether they're with us or not.
Yeah, no, I agree. How are you, Adam? We've got a lot to talk about, so how are you, bud?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I'm all good here, mate. Yeah, looking forward to getting chatting on this.
So that first comment in there, no Barry. It's not an optical illusion. Barry's only going to be doing weekends now. This is a new thing we're trialing on All for United. So the weekday lives are going to be a little bit different. But I'll try and entertain you all as much as Barry does. And as I say, we've got a lot to get into. So let's start with the Leicester game. Ruud's first game, obviously, after Ten Hag leaves. I love what Ruud said before the game. He said we need passion, we need fight, we need togetherness. Do you think that we saw that, Adam? What did you make of Ruud's lineup? What did you make of how he had the boys sort of set up?
Yeah, I mean, look, I did a post-match reaction myself. It was a solid performance. It was a good performance, but we just all need to just take a breath a little bit. It was Leicester's B team. As Daz just rightly said there in the intro, Ruud's not come in and made wholesale changes in one training session. Let's be frank here. It was the same tactics we've been seeing throughout the whole season. It's just that actually last night rather, the chances were taken. That was the big difference. So, yeah, all in all, look, it was a good performance. It was nice to see the togetherness of the team, but let's not get too overexcited here. I'd rather see a similar performance for Chelsea. For me, that's the important game coming up this weekend.
Yeah. I think I pretty much agree with you there. I mean, you've got to put the perspective on it, haven't you? What about you, Daz? What did you make of it? What did you make of how he conducts himself, Ruud?
It was nice to see the players. The only way of describing it is it's as if Ruud van Nistelrooy had just gone to the players in training. I know, I'm not staying. We've got this new guy coming in, but for the next few weeks or however long I'm here, I just want you to have fun. And I actually said, I hear a lot of comments about how it's obviously the players because we've won a game, but like Atfield's just said, it's the same tactics. Even with the 2 goals, it's the same mistakes that we're making. The difference is it wasn't West Ham, a team that can punish you. It's a team like Leicester that even Eric Ten Hag would have been beaten, let's be fair. Especially a Leicester team that wasn't their full team. But I'm a firm believer that it's the manager's job to inspire players and make them feel motivated. I just felt, and maybe it was his cold character, I just felt that Eric Ten Hag didn't do that, especially, probably since Christmas last year. I just don't think he inspired the players. I don't think that... and ultimately, we're a top 6 club, despite what people think, and he's ultimately gone because he's underachieved with this squad. And so what we sort of saw last night, it was the same tactics. Even with the goals, it was the same passing patterns. It was the same chances created. It was just sometimes when you have that weight of the manager just lifted off you a little bit, they just play with a little bit more freedom. And then obviously you naturally got a couple of players in there that are now obviously playing for the new manager, and they all want to stake the claim to the team that I'm the starter for this system. Bit of everything, but yeah, I think it was a good performance. At the end of the day, when you're in a position like we're in, unfortunately, every game's a must-win game, and you've got to be happy that you've got 3 points. I mean, we buried the game in the first half, which I was more than happy about, which then allowed us just to, take a foot off the gas a little bit in the second half. His substitutions was what you'd expect. There was sort of like for like, a forward off for a forward, a defender off for a defender. Nothing special. But like I say, it's just good to smile again. It's just good to see. I mean, we actually had a comment, didn't we, Andy, during the game, that it's nice to see him on the side of the pitch. I don't know how that looked with you being in the stadium, Adam, but from what we were seeing on the telly, he was on the side of the pitch for the whole game, and he's like shouting to play in a happy way. The minute the game pauses, you can see he's doing that one-on-one little pep talks with people. When I almost said that it was like a Sunday League manager, the way that he's just there constantly barking orders. But it's nice. But I mean, common sense tells us that he's only been there for one training session. It was pretty much the same lineup, given the injuries that we've had. He didn't drop the belt, and it's just. I think it was just a matter of being told that just play with confidence. Play free.
Yeah,
I think that was sort of what we saw.
I think this is quite an interesting comment. Don't mean to sound negative, but it was a bit frustrating watching them bury those chances.
Agree.
Do you think there was an element of that, or do you think, as I've heard a lot of people say today, that they just fell for us yesterday, or do you think that the players, did they look like they were giving it a little bit more, Adam? Did you think, was it that obvious?
If you look at all the stats this season, we're up there with the best in terms of chances created, but the big stat is big chances missed. Now, I don't want to sit here and say the players are doing that on purpose, because of course they're not. They're professionals. They play for the club. They want to score. They want to win. I do think it's just been we've been a bit unlucky. You think back to the West Ham game, that Dalot open net, hitting the crossbar twice. Same with Palace. I think we hit the post of the crossbar a few times in that game. We absolutely battered them. With the Brighton game, we got unlucky. You kind of think if we had the luck that we made in like Casemiro's last night, there's a massive element of luck for that going in that top corner. There's certainly a huge amount of skill, but in a training session, 7 of those whiz over the bar, go around the bar, don't they? Let's be honest. So if we had the luck that we had last night, in a certain extent, the rest of the season, would we be in the position we're in now? Who knows? But I think the players, I do agree with Daz's point. They looked a little bit like the weight of the world was off the shoulders a bit. And I think they've probably been feeling the pressure that all the media and the fan base has been piling on Ten Hag in his first few months of the season. They've obviously felt that. They're all on socials. They've read the comments. They've seen all the news bulletins, all the journalists, everything else. And I think that's translated to the pitch. Last night, it was a bit like, well, we know Ruud's only here for a few games. Let's just go and enjoy ourselves. That's kind of how it felt to me watching them.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I'm never really one to think, whether it is naive of me, that they will switch it on and off like that. But they did look happier. But I agree with what you're saying. I think it is fine margins. I mean, if we beat West Ham, is Ten Hag still here? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If goals go in against, say, Palace, is Ten Hag still here? And the start to the season looks a hell of a lot different. I mean, what do you want to see from Ruud in these few games, Daz? What do you want him to instill in these in the players before Amarin comes in? What do you want to see?
I just want to see this players enjoying themselves again. I think when we look back at the end of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer reign, the end of Jose Mourinho reign, and even the FA Cup final that we won with Van Gaal, the players looked emotionally exhausted from the pressure, the stress. And I know at Man United it's a different ball game because you have the immediate stuff that you just wouldn't get at another club. If Phil Foden had a bad, it'd be a perfect example. Grealish didn't have a great year last year. No one buttered an eyelid. Rashford has a bad year and is a finished player and he needs to be gone. Just the different expectations of different club. I think for me, I just want to see I'm playing with freedom again. I mean, I once made a controversial comment that the difference between Manchester United and Arsenal isn't the quality of players. It is the mentality and the structure around their starting lineups. I genuinely do believe that we have got a really good group of players. Fair enough, with a few players that still we need to move on, a few players we could better on. But this isn't a group of players that are bottom half table club. They're not. They are still a top 6 club, and I just want to see a bit of freedom. I think Man United fans need to, in general, be a bit realistic. The chances is we still might lose to Chelsea. We pick another win. We pick a win up in Europe. You know, and that's fine. I think it's just things are not going to improve overnight with a few training sessions. So regardless of what happens against Chelsea, I just want to see the fans just get behind the team. Because Van Nistelrooy could lose all 3 games, but ultimately is playing with a broken side. But Ten Hag's left behind. What is he really going to achieve in 3 games? You know what I mean? What is, there's no real expectation there. It's literally just maybe a bit like what Ollie was always going to come in for, because we always thought he was temporary, weren't we? Maybe it's just to have that fun feeling back, that nice feeling back in the club. The fans, I mean, we saw it last night. The fans overnight have gone absolutely bananas and are really happy. But like we've just all said, it was the same tactics, it was the same team, it was the same movement. We've created these chances in the games that we've lost, maybe other than Liverpool and Spurs. They're probably the only games where it's really gone wrong. But in every other game, we've created chances. Last night, we did look vulnerable at the back, like we have done in every single game. But the difference is people think that this is mint because it's Ruud van Nistelrooy that everybody naturally loves and you can't say a bad word against him. And I think that's blinding people with, what actually happened last night. Last night, we got the result that I genuinely think Eric Ten Hag could have got, given the chances that we've created.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we could go through all the goals, but we'd be here for a while. We scored a few, didn't we? Any of them stand out for you, Adam? Obviously, the Casemiro one's an absolute wonder goal. Or any players stand out for you? I mean, I thought Casemiro was very good. I thought Ugarte was very good. Anyone for you?
Yeah, for me, the best goal in was probably Garnacho's, just because it was a team goal. It was a beautiful team goal. I mean, the others were all worldies, weren't they? The free kick, top bins. I know the other 2 was a corner, and Fernandez's last one was a mistake from Leicester. Ugarte was brilliant. He really was solid. And you can see what they're trying to do. The guy didn't have a pre-season, and then he's moved to us, and people are expecting him to start in the Prem and shine. That doesn't happen. He'll get swallowed up. So they've eased him in. They've given him the so-called easier games, the cup games, everything else, just to bed in. But he's got to become a starter for us. And I imagine with Almiron coming in, who's worked with him before, he will be. But then you look at Casemiro and his form recently, following the Liverpool game, where, I was ready to, charge down and murder the guy after his first half performance, has been phenomenal. Him and Eriksen. So, and then you've got Mainu, who's injured, who's coming back in, who you think's always going to be a starter because of the quality he's got. So that's not a bad problem to have, though, I don't think, having that. The fact that all of our 4 central midfielders at the minute are all playing very well. I think that's a really good problem to have for the new manager coming in. But I couldn't have criticised anyone last night. Any of the squad, to be honest. They all played well, which was really refreshing to see. As you say, back was a bit shaky, but again, it was a makeshift back 4. You got Lindelof, who's just come back from a long-term injury. Martinez playing out of position, so it wasn't, our normal defence. And we saw that time and time again last season when we had all the issues we did with those makeshift defence we were putting together. We were just far too leaky because you can't build that stability at the back. But I had no qualms with any of the players last night. I thought it was just an all-round solid performance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, to you, Daz, we obviously let in a couple of goals. Do you think under Ten Hag, under the mentality that the players had under Ten Hag, do you think they fold in that moment? Or do you think, because Ruud very much let them loose, didn't he, last night? Do you think they kind of go into themselves after they concede a couple of goals? Or do you think they would have done what they did last night anyway and kind of kept attacking? Because he liked to hold on to a lead, didn't he, Ten Hag? How do you think that would have worked out differently if Ten Hag was still there?
I genuinely felt all he was missing was that togetherness within the camp. That I always say that good culture. I think it was the camp seemed to be missing. I don't believe players was playing bad deliberately. I don't believe players was chucking them under the bus. Maybe that's me being a bit naive. I just think. I think it was his personality. I mean, I always say there's two sorts of personalities that you could see in football. You can see that. I know you've two ex-Manchester United coaches. One, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, where you come in, you're happy, you're smiling, the fans love you, the media seems to, get on with you a little bit, and you're friends with everyone. You're the sort of person that would kick the ball around with the players on the training ground. And then you get a coach like Erik ten Hag that is very much regimental, sergeant major, is as dry as they come, zero personality. And both of them do work in football, but it's finding that fine margin. And I think this is going to be the new manager's job, and it's going to be challenging because he very much, from the research I've done, he seems to be more charismatic, more person friendly, a bit like Ollie was. And I think people will laugh and smile him. I think he will kick the ball around with players, and I think he will have a bit of fun. But it's finding that balance between having that, when it's a bit like when you look at Pep. Pep defends his players, he gets on with them, but when he says enough's enough, we're getting serious now, the players get serious. And if he says, I'm not having none of this, they know he's in charge. And I think the same was with Klopp, and that's one of the things Klopp was really successful with at Liverpool, that when he put his foot down, the players knew where that line was drawn. Whereas with Ollie, I think by the time he wanted to put that foot down, that he couldn't, because he was a friend. And I think Erik ten Hag just didn't have the personality to bring this fun feel. And I think that maybe that's what they wanted Ruud van Nistelrooy to do. I think that was one of the reasons why he was a good selection as a coach, because he brought that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sort of feel to the camp. It's just sometimes hard that when you're, already at a certain point, that I don't think it matters who you bring in. If that manager's still there, it's still going to be sort of negative. But I do feel that there was a lot. I'm not going to sit here now and I'm not going to chuck Erik ten Hag completely under the bus. I wasn't a fan and I wanted him to go. For me, it was a personality thing, and I said that to everyone. But there was a lot of good about him. We talk about the FA Cup last year. No other manager would have won the FA Cup with the injuries we had last year, but he won the FA Cup, having beat Liverpool and Man City to do it. I don't think any other manager would have done that with that squad, but he did. So there was some good stuff that we saw from him. I just think he lacked that happy mentality, that good cultural feel within the team. And ultimately, the players just stopped playing for him. Maybe not deliberately, maybe that was just a motivation and an inspirational thing, but ultimately you could see the players didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it got to a point, didn't it, where it needed to change. But Ruud's got 3 more games left. What do you see happening in those 3 games? I mean, we'll get onto Chelsea in a little bit more detail in a moment. Do you see 3 wins coming from those games? Do you see a positivity like for Amorim to come into, or do you see us struggling in these 3 games, Adam?
It's a difficult one because, as we've all painfully come to realise the last couple of seasons, you cannot predict which side of this United side is going to turn up game to game. We feel like we're turning a corner and we're getting a good run, and then they'll put in a ballsy, horrific performance and we'll get battered. Chelsea's going to be tough at the weekend because they are playing well at the minute. The manager's come in and he's got them settled. So it is going to be tough. But I think we can beat them on our day. And if he plays, an open attacking style, they are vulnerable, Chelsea at the back. We've seen that a few times this season. But equally, they're very good going forward. So we're going to need to strike a balance. I think he'll win the 2 games following that. I think he'll win the Leicester game and the Europa League game. But Chelsea, I mean, personally, I would take a draw just with how the season started, how we've been playing. I would say like a 2-2 or something like that. I think that would be a good result, and a good result for Ruud as manager. But we'll see. They could surprise us. They could actually turn up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Chelsea one, I think, is very difficult to judge given how we have been playing. Chelsea seems to be on the up. I mean, JJ says I'm keeping expectations low. What does that mean for you, JJ? What are low? Is that 3 defeats, 3 draws? We nicking a win somewhere. We've got Spurs in the next round of the League Cup. Do you see us beating Spurs? Where do you see us? What do you see Ruud doing in these last 3 games?
I'm not sure. I think I've just seen the comment below, keeping expectations low. I think, especially short term, it's so important to stay grounded. You know, we not wanting Man United to. We need Man United getting the results they should be getting. They should be getting. Chelsea, I don't care what anyone says, a Chelsea team that are on form are potentially on par with Manchester United. So a draw against Chelsea would have always been considered an all right result. Depending on whether it was home or away, depending on the injuries each team had, it would always be considered an okay result, you know. I don't think that should change. I think Chelsea are in the sort of, neither team are an obvious top 4 team. You know, neither team you would look at and say they're qualifying to the Champions League, even with Chelsea's improvements, even if Manchester United go back to the team there was when Eric Ten Hag took them over and finished in the top 4. I don't think either team you look at and they'll say, you know, they finish in the top 4. I think they both should have the expectations of finishing in the top 6. I think it's hard for Chelsea to prepare for that game more than anything because we've set the manager. I mean, they would have prepared for that game knowing that Eric Ten Hag was in charge and the mistakes that he's made. They knew that they could attack Man United quite early on in the game, maybe catch an early goal, and then Man United just then start panicking for the rest of the game, and it takes us to the second half to get back in it. But Chelsea can't prepare for that game anymore because nobody knows what Ruud will do because he'll have a couple of more training sessions under the belt. You'll think that he'd have looked at the game at the week last night and said, how can we better on that? Obviously, maybe he's seen the defence, you know, and thought, actually, we are a bit shaky. We're going to change it a bit different, you know, for tonight. Or he might say, actually, Martinez did work. The low did work to an extent. The midfield, the centre-back partnership sort of did work. You know, Casemiro's got a bit more, you know. So I said winning the Leicester game last night, and obviously the one in the league coming up, winning the Europa League games, because I do think that they're very much winnable games, and then we can drop them. It's never acceptable to drop points, but you have to be realistic sometimes. You know, tell yourself that, okay, let's drop points against Chelsea. Obviously, that being said, people are writing Manchester United off completely. Just to remind the same people that we did beat Liverpool a couple of months ago. We did beat Man City. We did go toe-to-toe with them in the Community Shield. And we were just separated by penalties, which are always 50-50, and a bit of luck plays in that. Man United have proven, even under Ten Hag, that we can beat any team on our day. We can. We've seen us do that, even during last season when we were terrible. So I'm hoping the confidence. If we can get through Chelsea with a win, and I'd like to think that that's what the team's aiming for. Whether, you know, a draw is a good result. A draw is a good result. And even if you lost 1-0 and it was one of them games where it was 50-50, end to end, and we was both creating a lot of chances, and it was just maybe a stroke of luck that see Chelsea win it 1-0. I'd be sad that we've lost it, but I'd accept that it was not a bad, you know, it was a good performance. It was a togetherness. I think the next few games for me is about creating a cultural shift, you know, that happiness, that togetherness, that when the new manager comes in over the international break, that he's got a good foundation to work on, as opposed to having to fix the negativity to then try and move forward. Let's just use Van Nistelrooy to create that happiness in the camp again, and then let the new manager have a blank canvas.
Do you think, Adam, that Ruud has not a free hit, but do you think he can take the shackles off a little bit in these games? Instead of being worried about losing it, can he maybe force it a little bit, attack a little bit more?
Oh, he 100% has a free hit. He really does, because he's been told by the club, look, we are bringing a new manager in. It is going to be imminent. They've probably told him he's got the 4 games. So for me, for Ruud, this is an audition on the world's biggest stage for him for his next managerial role down the line, and also to get the experience of managing Manchester United. I know he said in his press conference today he wants to stay on. He's contracted for us for 2 years, and he probably does. But for him, this is him going to the world. I'm great. I'm a fantastic manager. So I think he is going to treat it as a free hit and just try things that maybe he thought about or suggested with Ten Hag that Ten Hag rebuked and didn't want to try or anything else. I think he's just going to tell him to go out there and play the Manchester United way. He was really charismatic in his press conference today, saying things like in the changing room, he's telling them all about the different chants that the fans are singing, what they mean, all of this, because he's United through and through. He knows our history inside and out. So, yeah, I think this is definitely a free hit for him. He's going to take it with both hands and really try and make these players play to the best of his abilities that they can in order to, as I say, get him his auditions for future managerial roles.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even last night, it felt like, as I say, it felt like he let the shackles off a little bit. I know a lot of the goals kind of fell our way, but as you said earlier, we took them very well and we created so many chances. Do you think we're good enough to do that, Daz? If he takes the shackles off, do you think we're good enough to keep Chelsea out more than anything, and get a positive result against Chelsea, or do you think we maybe still need to be quite defensive minded and try and hit them on the break? Do you think we can play this attacking system that Ruud likes to play? Are we good enough, do you think?
Yeah, I think the attacking style and I call it a style because we are creating a lot of chances this season. Not many Leicester, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool are. We're very much on par with them in terms of chances created. I think if we create more stability at the back, which I think if the new manager comes in and he's going to go for that 3-4-3, I think as a fan base, we've got to be open to that because this 4-2-3-1 that seems to linger around the club for the last, what seems like 10 years. I know it hasn't. It's seemed probably since the start of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It's obviously not worked. It's obviously not evolving. They're not finding the right balance within it. I think given the fact that we do have 3 starting centre-backs that we could go for that, I think taking the defensive duties off Luke Shaw would be so good for them. Obviously, if you get then a game where you're playing against the Man City that are a little bit are better than us, you've got the option to then bring in 2 defensive midfielders. As your 2 midfielders in Ugarte and Casemiro. We saw last night Casemiro is far more than a defensive midfielder. He can move forward with the ball. He can be a threat, from 20 yards out. We've seen that. So there's ways of making it more defensive, more stable. But I love the fact that, and it's the only thing that kept me hopeful under Eric Ten Hag, is the fact that we was moving the ball forward really well at times. We was creating some good movements, and football's fine margins. Had we have finished at least, even we're currently near the bottom of missed chances. I actually worked out the other night, if we were 6 in missed chances, so we're not amongst the best, but just 6 where we've averaged in the last 3 seasons. So we've averaged 6 for missed chances every single year. That's sort of our average. If we go back to what our average is, Manchester United being 6th place. Would Eric Ten Hag have gone at 6th place? No, he wouldn't. People would have got behind him and they'd have stuck with it. But fine margins, maybe it was a little thing that needed tweaking just to get that ball in the back of the net, because some of them, the football was fantastic. I mean, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy. People talk about Marcus Rashford. I'm happy with what I'm seeing from him. I know he's had a couple of off games, so to speak. I'm happy with Garnacho. I'm happy to an extent even with Bruno. I actually said Bruno just needs a goal, just needs a goal, just needs to smile again, and I think his goal involvement will just start adding really quick now, because he is a phenomenal player, and it was nice to see him smiling last night. I think when he did that little fake pass and Casemiro picked the ball up, and he noticed the ball went in. You could see the big smile on his face, and it's just, and I think now he'll continue, to do that. So I'm happy to play defensive football, but it's important for the United fan base to acknowledge that something has to change. And if this new manager says, for the time being, I need to come in and play a 3-4-3 system, it is going to be more defensive, and we probably are going to be picking 1-0 wins up. It might not look pretty, but unfortunately, I don't have a 30-goal-a-year goal scorer that I need. I can't get that for 18 months. Then we have to be patient with him.
Yeah.
We constantly talk about our managers do need time, and I know that sounds very contradictory, the fact that we've not given Eric Ten Hag more than 3 years. I think to an extent the 3 years does need, the time needs to be earned. They need to be hitting a fair minimum. Dropping out of the top 4 didn't bother me with Eric Ten Hag. It was dropping in the bottom half of the table that bothered me. I think if we'd have stayed 6th or 7th and we looked as if we was improving, then I'd have been happy to stick with the project for another year, and then let's see what he does when Højlund is burying 20 goals a year consistently. Maybe things do change, maybe when Ahmed's a little bit further on. But I do think we need to accept that we might not be top 14 for a couple of years, might not be Champions League this year or next year, and that's okay, just so long as we're not a laughing stock in 14th place.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And given the lack of goals, Adam, would you set it up differently on Sunday against Chelsea? Xerxes looks a little bit lost to me at the moment. Although I thought he played okay last night, it didn't really drop for him. He looks a little bit lost to me, especially in front of goal. He's snatching at a lot of things. Would you play Højlund, or would you maybe put Rashford through the centre? How would you line it up on Sunday?
I'd play Højlund. I think some of the best football we've seen this season was when he's had that from three of Højlund, Rashford on the right, and Garnacho on the left. That for me would be our front three. I think what we saw last night was he rested a few players. Some of the ones that maybe are just coming back from injury aren't quite up to speed yet. So I expect to see like De Ligt coming back in alongside Martinez. I expect to see Mazraoui going back to one of the wide positions. So I think we'll get a more stable back four. It's the midfield for me that's the big one. Is he going to go with Casemiro Eriksen, or is he going to actually give Ugarte a start alongside either one of them? That's where the big sticking point is for me. But I would expect to see your standard front three of Højlund, Rashford, and Garnacho with Bruno just tucking in behind. But for me, it's that midfield too that I think is going to have the biggest question mark.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Eriksen pulled up in the warm up yesterday. So whether he's going to be fit for Sunday, that may sort of
may force his on
then. But a lot of people are saying in the comments about Xerxes, he looked lost yesterday. Box has said looks like a deer in the headlights. I know you're not a big fan, Daz. Do you see? Not him saving his United career, but do you see a United player in Xerxes? Do you see enough on the pitch from Xerxes from a long-term thing? Do you see a United player in Xerxes?
I
know you're not a big fan.
I think part of me with Xerxes especially is, I'm gonna say it, and I know people won't like it. I don't like what I see when I look at him as a footballer, and I know that's far too early to make a judgment on a player that is coming to a new league. He's still quite young, and he's coming to United that seem to be absolutely dire right now. So you shouldn't expect any young player to be performing quite well. But I don't like what I see, but there's parts of me that's just like, someone put in the comments, play Højlund till he drops. I'd much rather do the opposite and play Xerxes till he drops, because I think he could be one of these players who just needs a few goals, just needs a bit of confidence, because his link-up play is really good, his work rate is really good, his little 1-2 passing is really good. It's literally just, I know the most important thing for a striker is the end product, but it just seems like he's, when the ball comes straight over. I mean, you probably remember it last night when, quite early on in the game, I think it was only 1-0 at this point, he got almost one-on-one with the goalkeeper with a defender quite close to him. And I just think his, split-second decision-making is really poor. But unfortunately for a young player, and I remember seeing this for Cristiano Ronaldo, sometimes you've just got to play through that. You've got to put in them situations more often. And it's a bit like riding a bike. You've got to fall off. You've got to graze your leg. You've got to hurt your elbow because you learn from them.
Yeah. I think this is quite a good,
you're riding the bike really well.
I think this is quite a good point from NC here, that Xerxes doesn't look up to speed with the English game. I mean, a lot of people say, he's come from Italy. It's known for being a slightly slower league, so he'll have a little bit more time on the ball. He does look at times like he wants a bit more time to find that pass, whether he's not quite clued into it yet. And this is a great comment as well, I think. I think play Haaland and Xerxes, as you said, Daz, I think Xerxes' hold-up play, sorry, he's knitting together of the play. I think it's a lot more impressive than his actual in front of goal sort of play. What do you think, Adam? Do you think Xerxes could work as a 10? Do you think he just doesn't look like a goal scorer to me? He doesn't look overly confident in front of goal.
Yeah, he's admitted himself that he sees himself as, a 9.5. He doesn't really see himself as an out-and-out striker.
Is that our fault then? Are we playing him in a role that...
Well, yeah. The issue you've got is then you'd have to drop Bruno to play him really alongside Haaland. So it's how do you get all these players into the team? I think he does just need time. I don't like it when people are really on top of, especially young players. I could understand if he was a 29-year-old coming in who's seen it all, played all across the Europe, banged in goals everywhere they've been, and then they come to United and don't perform. But when it's a young player who needs that development time, he needs to get up to speed, because the Premier League will be a massive shock to him. It is hugely different to the Italian league, where he has learnt his trade effectively. So I think we just need to give him, it might take a season, it might take a season and a half, but I do think there is a player in there. I think eventually he will drop into a deeper role, because I do really like his pressing play and his link-up play. He's a big, solid unit. He can hold the ball really well. And I'm sure the goals will come. He's been, again, there or thereabouts. He's just, sometimes he's not. And it goes back to the speed thing. He's just not that half a yard where he should be. He's set off a bit too late. Yeah. And he's stretching for the ball all the time as well. And then he's not getting...
It's like he wants to be deeper as well, similar to the way you'd normally see Harry Kane, it's like he wants to... And I think he's one of the players, and I'll admit I don't like what I see from him so far, but I'm quite impatient, but I'm not going to show him. I'm not going to call him a flop. But I think he's one of the few players that could really thrive under this potentially new 3-4-2-1 system, because it does allow him to play him as one of the two behind the striker without losing Bruno, and then he'd be surrounded by really good players. And, I think he could be one of the players that could thrive. Unfortunately, with the new system, we've got quite a lot of players that could be occupying them two roles behind the striker, because you've got Mason Mount that will want to play there. You've got Bruno that will want to play there. Garnacho, if they're going to play, they're going to have to try and sit there and maybe push out to the wings from that position. How he's going to manage it, because his system obviously doesn't look good for wingers, the more attacking midfielders. I think this is where we might see Garnacho and Rashford drop off completely and maybe, moved on at a later date, and actually players like Xerxes come through and actually see how good they are, because for all of the because he's got the right characteristics, like Adam said, the characteristics are there. It just needs to be in the right position and the right, I'm hoping that the new manager sees that.
To be fair to Xerxes, no one's really scored goals, have they? He's copying it a lot from fans. No one's really been banging him in at a rapid rate anyway. I think JJ's another good point. It's like he's been thrown into the deep end, and I don't know if that's about us fans expecting too much of young lads. When Yoro comes in, if he has a couple of bad games, I dread to think what he could get on social media, the flack and stuff. Is this a fair comparison, do you think? No. Xerxes to Weghorst? Feels a bit harsh from Box there. But yeah, we'll stick with the Chelsea game. Give us your predictions on the Chelsea game, Adam. And then we'll move on to Amorim.
My heart says a United win 4-2, but my brain says
Ooh.
a draw 2-2. So it's going to be a tough game. I think it'll be quite a high-scoring game. I think both teams are going to go at each other. Chelsea are going to sniff blood.
Yeah.
And as you said, I think Ruud's just going to say to them, you got nothing to lose. You know, no one's going to be criticising you these next 4 games whilst everything's sorted out. Go out and enjoy yourself. So I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I hope we can do them. In my like I say, my heart, which I'd rather go for 4-2 United, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'd take a 4-2 United. Go on, Daz. Give me a prediction, a 1 minute prediction.
I actually think it's going to be the opposite to what Adam thinks. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, maybe a 1-0. I think, given the fact that Man United have sacked Erik ten Hag and the preparation that Chelsea would have put into that game, is sort of majority of it's sort of thrown out the window because nobody knows what Ruud van Nistelrooy is really going to do or whether he is capable of making big changes at big moments in the game. I think both teams... I think it'll be like a game of chess. Both teams will be wary of the other. Man United will be very wary that we are very vulnerable right now, probably most vulnerable than we've ever been. I think Chelsea, the data doesn't lie, and I think Chelsea will know that data that Man United can attack you and can punish you. And on the back, I know it was only Leicester, but these players can score goals. So I actually think it's... My brain tells me that Chelsea are going to pip it 1-0 and it's going to be a 50-50 game. I'll not be happy we've lost, but if it's a 50-50 game and you can't split the two teams, I'd be proud of the performance, if nothing else, because given the position we're in right now and the position where they're in, it should very much be Chelsea destroying Manchester United. But so I'm going to go 1-0 Chelsea, and I'd never like predicting against United. I don't, but I think I can see it 1-0 Chelsea, and I think it'll probably be a late goal.
Yeah, so I agree with this comment. I think my heart is saying 3-1 United. I'm not sure where we're getting 3 goals from against Chelsea, but my heart's saying 3-1. But if I kind of think about it, but I do think there will be goals. Hopefully, it'll be an open game and. You know, there's lots of goals in it. I just want it to be like a United game where we attack. If they score 2, we score 3 or 4. You know, like good old fashioned like United games. That's what I miss seeing at United. But yeah, before we move on to Amarin, a little thing I want to try and do on the midweek shows is bring the chat into it a little bit more. So if you've got any questions or anything that you want to throw in the chat that we can kind of bring up later, any sort of points you want us to talk about or cover before the show's finished, throw them in there and I'll star them and we'll get to them in a moment. But yeah, I mean, the biggest secret or whatever this week has been that Amarin is probably coming now to United. As he said in his press conference earlier, the soap opera is nearly coming to an end. What do you think, Adam? What do you think? I know you was very pro Ten Hag with the patience, and what do you think? What do you think we're getting from Amarin?
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know loads about him because I don't follow the Portuguese league, but I've done a bit of research since obviously we've been linked to him. And, you know, there's no denying that he's a very young, exciting coach who plays a really beautiful style of football. He's done fantastic wonders with Sporting. He's gotten the league for the first time. I think it's like 17 years or something like that, maybe longer. Yeah. If I remember exactly. He's very charismatic. He seems to have really good relationships, not only with the players, with the media. But I also remember sitting here 2 years ago and saying all the same things about Erik ten Hag. When we got him, he was the up-and-coming manager in Ajax. He'd done amazing things. He'd had those runs in the Champions League. He played a beautiful style of football. So we all need to just remember where we were 2 years ago and where we are now. And I think we've used the word patience a lot this evening. We need to start at some point, or else we're just going to continue this cycle of 2.5 years with a manager and we get rid of them because results don't go one way or the other. The reason that cycle keeps happening is a coach comes in, looks at the players that he's got, plays a style of football that suits those players, wins a bit, gets you top 4, but then when that manager wants to start changing it to the way he wants to play, that's where the pain starts. And you get paying through change. You have to bring in new players that take a while to bed in. You have to try new things. You have to try new styles. Sometimes it doesn't work. Other things then happen, like injuries and stuff like that. And suddenly we're sat here in another October international break in a few years' time talking about the next arm on that's coming into the club. So if we're going to do this again for the whatever it's been, 5th time since Fergie left, we need to do it properly this time. We need to look at your Artetas who have been given 6 odd years. We need to look at your Guardiolas who were given years at City before we started winning things. We need to look at your Klopps, because what's the common denominator out of all of them? They've been given them 5, 6, 7 seasons to really bed in a team that suits their style and suits that style of football. So, yeah, caution and patience. But if he comes in and he starts to do a job, you know, as I do with every United manager, I will back them to the hilt. I will back them till, you know, the point where you simply just can't anymore. So, yeah, we'll just see what he brings.
Yeah, I think that's 100% fair. Adam makes a very good point, Daz. When we was looking at Ten Hag originally, Ten Hag was very sought after, wasn't he? He was doing amazing things with Ajax. He just got into the semi-final, or maybe the final of the Champions League. I can't remember. They were doing amazing things, and he was very sought after. I remember it was between him and Poch at the time of who we was going to get. A lot of the fan base wanted Poch because of what he'd done at Spurs, but we kind of went for Ten Hag, and we were a little bit like we are now. We were excited, we were optimistic of what was coming, because it kind of dwindled out with Ollie's, and then we had Ragnick, and we was optimistic and excited. Why is this different? Because Amorim's in essence doing what Ten Hag did at Ajax. Why is it different now? What do you see from Amorim that Ten Hag doesn't have or didn't have? How is it different?
On paper, nothing. If anything, is even less qualified for the United job than Ten Hag was. I think the stats, the data around Eric Ten Hag was far better than what we're seeing from Amorim. 100%. I think what frustrated me about the manager the most was the fact that we was attracted to him by a certain style of play, amongst other things that he had, and a certain way he had at managing and developing players. But I always remember him saying, I don't have the players to play the same system at Ajax. But I'm like, you spend all this money, what do you mean you don't have the players to play that system? We give you the money in order to play this system. It's that system that we wanted you for. It's that style of play we wanted you for. And he didn't implement it. So I'm like, bar that system, he had 0 qualifications for the United job. What I want to see from the Man United job, from the new manager, is him actually have the balls to come in and play that system. You know, if he wants to play 3-4-3 and he believes in his head that he can make that work in the Premier League with the defensive stability that he's got, as well as the free-flowing going forward, then you go for it, because that is what's attracted us to you. That is what's attracted the club to you. If then we get 6 months down the line and that 3-4-3 isn't working, he then feels that maybe I need to drop it to a 4-4-2. Maybe I need, you know what I mean? Knowing that he's not scared to change it if he's tried it and it's not worked, but still keeping the same characteristics that his existing style's got. But I think the big issue for Eric Ten Hag is he wasn't willing to try anything. It's as if he wanted to leave behind everything that was good from Ajax and try and create something new at United. We don't want that. We don't want that. I mean, if we're going to create something new at United, let's bring a proven manager in that can do that. So nothing is good. Nothing's different. Like Adam said, we sat here 2.5 years ago and we had this same conversation about why his style of play is good. You know, he's attractive, he's this, is that. I think the one big difference, and how much of a difference maker it will be, only time will tell, is when Eric Ten Hag came in, he was brought in by the Glazers, and other than Richard Arnold and a few other people that was not qualified to do anything in relation to football, more investment bankers, there was nothing to help support him into a Man United role. Whereas now, this new manager, for the first time under Glazers, I don't even think to an extent Alex Ferguson had that when the Glazers come in. For the first time, he's coming in to a director of football, you know, a performance director. He's got all of these people, recruitment, everybody. I think he's got 5 or 6 people between Jim Radcliffe. Under Jim Radcliffe, like I say, you've got Jean-Claude Blanc, you've got David Brosford, and they're Ineos people, they're not Man United people. It's important for people to remember that the cycling guy isn't running Man United. He isn't.
No.
He's the person running Manchester United is Omar Barada. But, he's the CEO. And then, but we've got 5 or 6 really good qualified people between him and the manager, and Ten Hag didn't have that. Again, we won't know until we sit here in 2 years' time how much of a difference that was. I'd like to think it was the right. I think, and the thing is as well, people talk about Ineos bringing these players in. Look, Ineos brought these players in over the summer, but none of these people had a chance to do any scouting. These new people, none of these people, they have to do sort of live data. What does the manager lead? What does the data say? What ticks the boxes? It's going to take 4 or 5 years for the benefits of this backroom staff in terms of finding them hidden gems, the Lavias, the Caicedos that people always said we need to try and find, because they need to put everything in place to get that. They're not going to do that overnight. So the next few transfer windows might not be as good as what people are expecting from what is a really good structure. But yeah, now I think the deadwood, so to speak. I know there's a few more players in that team, and I think Adam will agree and you'll agree that do maybe still need to be moved on, but the bulk of it has already been done. And I think it would have been easy for the new managers, for the Ineos group to say, let's bring Xavi in. He's been at Barcelona. He knows what a big team's like. He's one of the greatest players of our generation. So people are going to respect him. I know that doesn't make you a great manager, but it does give you respect in the dressing room. It'd been so easy to bring him in because he was available, and it was evident that he wanted the United job. But I think what they've done is they've gone away and they've spoke to different managers and they've said, this is what we have. We are not having another rebuild. This is our short-term plan that we've put in place. Can you work with that? And I think that this is what's led them to this particular manager, because I feel that, and that's good, because it means that they've, I think people say it was quite strange that Eric Ten Hag went after West Ham. I don't think he went after West Ham. I think Eric Ten Hag went after that meeting during the international break. I think during that meeting, they sat down and somebody in there said the manager is going, and then Ineos group, Jean-Claude Blanc, whoever makes that decision, went to Omar Barada, Wilcox and Ashworth and said, find me some managers. We could have sat with this man publicly and to find us some managers. And I think they found the right manager, behind closed doors, and then they just did it instantly, because this has happened really quick and a little bit too quick, from sacking him to bringing a new manager in, which tells me, if I'm right, and they did make that decision in the last international break, that means they've put some thought into it. Which is all I want. I'll back any decision Ineos make, so long as they can justify the decision by saying we sat down as a group of people in a meeting and this was what we thought was the best decision going forward. We might not always like the decisions that Ineos make, but we've got to respect the fact if they're making them properly. I don't think anything's different. I think he's similar CV to Eric Ten Hag, attractive football where he plays. Whether he can implement that in the Premier League, again, that's another question. Whether he can handle the media, that's again, he handles the media quite well at Sporting, but no disrespect to Sporting. Sporting's not a Manchester United, it's not a Liverpool, it's not a Real Madrid, it's not a Barcelona. Things are different at a club like ours because, and I'm gonna blame the great man because of what Alex Ferguson did. Manchester United are a name and a brand associated with winning. That is it.
There's an expectation now.
I think the media forget that we're not that anymore, but they still treat managers if we should be.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the players. If he comes in, a lot of the players now, Ten Hag spent X amount of millions bringing in his boys, his players. Are there any of them that you worry about now? Are there any of them that you think their heads really are on the chopping block. Georgie Best there says Almiron will make Anthony a top player. For me, Anthony, I think he'll be lucky to make the grade personally. And another comment here says clubs want him in January. Will they be looking to shift Anthony on, trying to get a bit of that money back? Maybe, Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Anthony's the one, if you look through the squad currently, who just doesn't look like he's going to make it. It's a funny one with Anthony because there is a player in there. But I think he's not helped himself with all the off-field stuff last season. I think that really had a detrimental impact on his performances. But now you've got the emergence of Ahmad coming through, who is your direct right winger that we're used to seeing at Man United, that goes at players, that takes them on, scores goals, has assists. And Anthony's a bit of a one-trick pony, cut in on the left, try and get it in the top bins. You know, and if you're playing against that as a defender, it's so easy. You know, he doesn't really try and take people on. He doesn't really try and dribble. So you'd think Anthony is the one. I think a few of the older players as well might be looking over the shoulders a little bit. You do need experience in a team, but there's a couple in our squad that, you know, they're either completely injury prone. I'm thinking of Luke Shaw just off the top of my head, or they really are getting to the latter stages of the career now and they can't be performing every 3 days for Manchester United. And that's like your Ericssons, your Casemiros. And this new manager, one thing I do know about him from reading is he loves developing young players. And one thing with United at the minute, we have a hell of a youth system coming through. Like, I think that's what a lot of people don't realise is our under-18s, our under-21s, there's some incredible players in there that are coming through at the minute. You give them another 3 years when they get up to the grade, and if we do have a manager like Almiron coming in who likes to promote those young players, give them a chance, as United should do, as we've done historically, we might not even need to go to the transfer market in some cases because we have some frighteningly good youth players coming through, and if they can take that step up, there's your team for the next 10 years, ready-made. I think that there are a couple of players should be looking for over the shoulder. For me, Shaw and Anthony are the two big problems at the minute.
I mean, I think from the transfer dealings in the summer, it definitely looks like there's a building towards the future, doesn't it? With Euro, with the lad.
And that's another thing that everyone forgets. Sorry, Beanie, to cut you off. We have a really youthful squad at the minute, and they are going to miss chances. They are going to have bad games. They are going to make mistakes. That's part of being a youthful player. You give them 2 or 3 years' time, we've got a hell of a squad. You know, you think of your main who's coming into the prime, Højlund, Garnacho, Ahmad, Ugarte is only young. You know, Yoro has been touted as one of the best potential centre-backs in Europe in the next 5 years. We've got a really good youthful squad coming through. In 2 or 3 years' time, when they mature, if we keep them all fit and keep them developing, that is a hell of a squad we've got coming through there, which excites me as a United fan.
Georgie Bester's message there disagrees with your emergence of Ahmad. Do we think Ahmad's good because Anthony's bad, or do you genuinely see a player in Ahmad? I mean, I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan. I think he's a really good player. The reason that he might look mediocre is he's not getting the game time, which is a shame. But you know, there's definitely a really good player in there. He showed that on loan with the couple of loan spells he's had, and he's another one of those players who just needs a run of games. And I think once he gets a couple of goals, a couple of assists, he'll get on a hell of a roll. But he's got to push Rashford out of the team. That's his biggest problem at the moment, unfortunately, because Rashford is one of those who can either get you a hat-trick or can be completely invisible for a full 90 minutes. And it must be a nightmare for a manager because he doesn't know what Rashford's going to turn up on a match-to-match basis. But you've got to play him because he can be that match winner for you on his day. And he can really, really, really destroy teams when he wants to, when he's in the mood. So where do you go with that? But I don't agree with that comment. I think Ahmad's a really good player and he's going to be a good player, if not for us, for another club potentially in the future.
I think it's important as well, though, isn't it, Adam, with someone like Ahmed, that he's given the freedom to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, your United season ticket holder, I know you have been for a while, and everybody forgets to talk about this when we talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo was a really frustrating teenager that tried everything. Threw the kitchen sink at a game and failed every time. Tried to take a player on. And there was United fans at one point that said, why are we still playing this kid? And Alex Ferguson saw something there and just gave him the freedom to fail. And that freedom to fail ultimately made him one of the greatest players of our
And we've seen that with Garnacho.
So I'm
You know,
not saying
Garnacho can
Mohamed's
still
going to turn
be
into Cristiano
frustrating.
Ronaldo, but he needs that, don't he? He needs that freedom to fail. And
Yeah.
for me, when I look at him, yeah, I do see some bad decisions. I do see some bad things that he does. But I see a player that really wants to succeed on the pitch. He's 110%. He's always running. He's always wanting to get the ball. He's, you know, and it reminds me of a young Cristiano Ronaldo in, you know, the work rate and the way that he wants to succeed. I just think, like you say, just needs to play a bit more, and it just needs to develop.
I think that's the problem with our fan base.
Do you think, though, Dad, that
the expectation that they put on players, especially young players, who are fan base sometimes, is just really unfair, because you can't expect Ahmad to be a Vinicius Junior, you know, when he's not anywhere near that level yet. He's not been given that time. And I agree. I remember being on United when Ronaldo in his first or second season and hearing someone behind me, a chant had gone up saying there's only one Ronaldo, there's only one Ronaldo. And someone behind me going, yeah, and it's not you, in like a monotone voice. And then just look to what he's done in a career. And I bet that guy's still sat there saying the same things about Ahmad and Garnacho now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Our fan base can be really fickle sometimes when it comes to youth.
Do you think Ahmad may be one of the ones that will struggle for game time with how Amorim may set up with him, the way he'll set up with the wing backs, and then you'll have the two in front of the striker. You'd assume that two in front of behind the striker, sorry. You'd assume one of that two is going to be Bruno, then it's going to be another one, you'd imagine. And then is Ahmad behind Garnacho? Then is he behind Rashford? Is he then going to struggle to get that game time that you say he needs, Adam? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're all assuming that Almiron's going to come in with that formation. He might have a completely different idea. We don't know until he comes in and we see his first few games. I know we've said tonight we hope he comes in and just says, no, we're doing it my way, because that's what we're going for him for. But he could also, Ahmad's not bad defensively. There's no reason why he couldn't play one of the wing-back roles going forward and back. You know, It depends what he's looking for in his wing-backs, I suppose. But there's going to be a few that struggle for game time if he's playing that kind of narrow system, especially whether he does or not. If Shaw comes back and he's fit, you'd think he'd take that left-hand side. So then you've got Dalot, Mazraoui, Ahmad, Rashford, all going for that one position, potentially down that left-hand side, because I think he goes for a Mount and Fernandes in them 10 pockets.
Yeah.
Because we saw that at the beginning of this season, actually, and it did work quite well in those first few games before Mount got injured again, which is, you know, another issue is whether he can stay fit or not. But we're guessing at the moment. But I would say, your Ahmads, your Rashfords, your Garnachos may struggle. But he may come in and go, they're hell of a players. I've got to get them into my system somehow, which is where we might see him make changes to the way that he plays, because you've got to play to the strength of the players that you've got in your squad, especially as you're a new manager coming in. There's no point in playing his system he's been playing in Sporting if he's going to put mediocre players in our squad in those positions just because it fits. He's got to get the best players onto the pitch. That's how you win games. So only time will tell.
Yeah, I think as well.
Sorry, Daz. Here's one for you, buddy.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, here's one for you. This comment is for a 3-4-3, we'll need a centre forward. We don't have a centre forward, Fran says. How do you think he'll take to Højlund? I know he's got Gyökeres, hasn't he, at Sporting at the moment, who's absolutely lighting things up, isn't he? Do you think he'll use Højlund, or do you see him maybe using Rashford down the centre? How do you think he'll go with that centre forward role? The fact we are struggling for goals.
Well, I've actually done some I think it's important to remember that Marcus Rashford is highly associated with the left wing, and he has had his better games on the left wing but he was an academy striker. He was a support striker behind James Wilson. A lot of people probably forget that name. So he was an academy striker. And I've actually done some more research. Diallo was actually an academy striker as well for Atalanta. So Diallo sort of did a Mason Greenwood. He was that good. He was brought into the senior squad at Atalanta, and the only position they had for him was the right wing. So, and like Adam just said, you've got to get your best players on the pitch, and he was one of their best players. And putting him on the right wing was just getting a good player, young player on the pitch, and it improved them. They might have suffered in a few little areas. So maybe the manager comes in and says, actually, Diallo's got the characteristics to be my man up top. Maybe the Xerxes would work as one of the backups, attacking midfielders behind. Maybe, I think if he goes to the 4-3-2-1 system, I think he'd be inclined to put Marcus Rashford as his striker. Granted, I think Marcus Rashford as a striker is still better than Højlund as a striker, and I think he's still better than Xerxes as a striker. It's not Marcus Rashford's best position, no, 100%. Could he be developed a little bit more so late on in his career to find that in him? I think he's got, he likes his, when you look at the system, and again, I'd love to sit here and say I know everything about him. It's literally just been quite a lot of research over the last few days. But he likes his centre forward to be able to run on the ball. He likes him to be quite quick. A characteristic that Højlund's got just as quick. I'm not saying it's not, but I think with Marcus Rashford being senior, with him being a versatile forward anyway, I think he could be the one that, sort of maybe short term takes that role as Manchester United starting centre forward. Is it the ideal scenario? No. Is he going to be, one of these world-class centre forwards? No. But the reality is we haven't got one, and I wouldn't suppose that we've got the money to get one in January. So sometimes you have to compensate with what you've got and just get your best players on the pitch, and then look further down the line and say, because when you think about the summer window coming up, there's a massive argument that we need a new left back. Desperately. I'm a big fan of Luke Shaw, but how good's a player that's never available? So maybe he says, I just need a left back that I can trust for 38 games a season. But no, I think that Rashford might find it's quite versatile, like I said, and he's got quite a lot of good characteristics. Maybe he could play one of them attacking midfield roles. We've never seen him there. Or, like Adam said, maybe he comes in and he says that I've got Diallo, I've got Garnacho, I've got Rashford, I've got all these, all these great wingers. I need to make this system work with wingers. We don't know. Like I say, until he comes in, it's really hard to tell. Maybe he just puts his philosophy and style of play on the 4-3-2-1. Sorry, the 4-2-3-1 system that we currently play. We don't know, but if he comes in and he was to get rid of Marcus Rashford and Garnacho, but the new system works without wingers, then we're all going to get behind it. I think one of the other things to be mindful of, and I mentioned this today, Man United have this unofficial rule that managers are told an academy graduate has to start every game for Manchester United. That is an unofficial rule. It's part of the heritage of United. Well, we've actually only got 3 academy graduates that are associated with the first team. One's Mainu, the other's Johnny Evans, and the third one's Rashford. So this conversation will have happened, with the new manager, that we have this heritage of academy graduates starting. So very much Marcus Rashford's going to be part of that game, because Mainu is not ready to play 38, 50-odd games a season, across all competitions. He's just not. So I think this would be one of the reasons where we do actually see Marcus Rashford find a place in that team. But let's be fair.
I actually think Rashford may struggle. I actually think Rashford will struggle, given the fact of apparently Amorim's has a very high press, very energetic structure of his team, and that they're not things that Rashford really does great. And I think Rashford may struggle a little bit. But as Boxer said, there's so much coming through the youth system. Obi Martin looks like a real player. The Italian lad, I won't even begin to pronounce his name. He looks a real player. We've got Amas on the left. I mean, we need a left back. Amas has been sat there for 18 months now, just waiting for a game. So I definitely think there's enough coming through the system. But what players do you think will thrive under what Amorim does? I mean, Ugarte must be absolutely buzzing. I mean, Ten Hag didn't really seem to take to him. Whether that was because he was kind of wanting to sort of bleed him in slowly. But Ugarte, Amorim's man, isn't he? He built him up at Sporting, got him his big move to PSG. Who do you think will really thrive? Like people like Maguire, how do you think he'll take to what Amorim does? Who do you think will be looking forward to the new guy coming in? Adam, sorry.
Yeah, I think Ugarte is you one you'd think about. I think Fernandes will thrive under him if he does play the system that we're all assuming he's going to play. That kind of system really suits Fernandes down to a T. Maguire could also thrive because he's played as a free for England for many years under Southgate, and we always talked about tournament Maguire because he always seemed to turn up. Maybe that's because he was sitting in a back three that he really benefited from that. But I do think, again, we're assuming he's going to come in with this system, but it is going to be your midfielders and your attacking midfielders that are going to thrive. I agree. I think the players in our squad who don't necessarily put in as much effort in terms of tracking back, pressing, tackling, may struggle a bit because they're going to get found out very quickly and he's going to basically not fancy them. But optimistic. I think that a couple of players will really thrive under him, will really enjoy the philosophy that he's going to bring to the club.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. I agree with you 100%. So I want to kind of end the podcast today. I did it the other day as well. Now Amorim's in. What do you expect? How do you hope that the season will end up? Do you think top 6 is out of the question? Do you think there's a trophy in there? Do you think top 4's gone? What do you think? Are we going to get a new manager bounce now? What are your expectations now the manager's changing? And we'll go with you, Daz, first. Try and keep it short.
I'd love to even say top 4, but I said at the beginning of the season that even if Man United came out all guns blazing, in that top 4 now you've got, I'm not in no particular order, but you've got Man City that are going to finish in the top 4. You've got Arsenal that are going to finish in the top 4, especially based on the last 2 seasons. Based on what we're currently looking at, you could argue Liverpool are going to finish in the top 4. Well, that's 3 positions already gone. We've then got Chelsea that seem to be progressing really well under this manager. You've got Aston Villa. Unai Emery's got them playing like a fine tune, so they could be in there. Spurs, Ange Times has got Spurs looking like I think they could miss out, but you've got Ange that's looking like he could challenge for top 4 until quite late on in the season. And then obviously
so
Man United, who I have said could come, are a big 6 club. Man United could have a really good season and still finish 7th just because of the competition, And I think the damage that's happened in the first 9 games could be the difference between us breaking into the top 6. That being said, if he can come in and he can get these firing straight away and he can get us even at where Ollie had us, could Man United surprise a few teams? 100%. We're not getting. Look, I think it's important to even say, although top 4 isn't impossible, it is quite improbable that we would get top 4 for the reasons that I've given. With so much competition there, and they're progressing better than us as of right now. They've not got that uncertainty of whether they will or not. They are progressing right now and they are stable clubs right now, whereas we're not. I think I'd like Manchester United to finish in the top 7, but not too far away from top 4. I think I want to be within touching distance, a couple of points, 6 points. I'd be happy with 6 points from top 4, no matter where we finish. I think we know we're not going to get Champions League football, so I want to chuck everything, including the chickens, at this Europa League, because this Europa League is very winnable. I've looked at the teams that are in there. if we're playing good football, we can beat every single team in the Europa League. So I want him to focus on the Europa League, because the Europa League gets us back in the Champions League, which, you know, ticks so many boxes commercially, if nothing else.
This is the spot on comment. To be fair, I think sixth, but as you say, as long as you're in touching distance of fourth. I mean, John on the Sunday show said, "Are we really ready for Champions League at the moment? So if you miss out on top four, is that really that bad? While we will be in a little bit of a rebuild, however much we don't want to be. Where do you see it, Adam? What do you think the rest of the season looks like?
I think we should be aiming for fifth or sixth. I don't think we're getting top four, as Daz rightly said. There's far too many teams way ahead of us at the minute in terms of their progress, their rebuilds, their stability, their squads. But I think injuries are going to play a big factor this season. We've started to see a few of the bigger teams getting some significant injuries at the minute. Liverpool, City. So we'll see how that plays out up to the Christmas period, because this is like the busiest period, isn't it? This side of Christmas and just past. But I would say if we, from where we are now, got fifth or sixth this season, that would be an amazing achievement for him in his first, not even half a season, first 3/4 of a season. And I agree with Daz. I think Europa League is very winnable. And I think we should be ensuring, first and foremost, we're not having to do the silly qualifications to get in the last sort of 16. But I would definitely be throwing the kitchen sink at bringing that back, so we can bring Champions League next season and the benefits that come with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think this comment is pretty much my thoughts exactly. Seventh and win the Europa League, like Daz says. It's got some decent teams in it, but it's a very winnable competition. I think if our performances are better and we are a little bit touching distance away from top four, I think seventh with Europa League, I think would be. I think the
thing with the Europa League this season, sorry to interrupt you, Beanie, is that you're not getting the Champions League teams dropping down into it this season. That's why it's a lot more winnable as a competition, I think, this year.
No, and I think you hear people talk about, if you can't be in the Champions League, we don't want to be in Europe. And ultimately, that's because Thursday nights are terrible. I actually mentioned this earlier. We play in teams that don't necessarily have an airport in their city. So you're then flying into a different city and then having a 4 or 5 hour transfer to the hotel. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's not good. And Man United ultimately lose the training session because of travel, which does hinder teams. We've seen this. And this is why Bayer Leverkusen struggled to win it last year. This is why Liverpool struggled to. I mean, the Europa League is hard to win. It's in a lot of ways it's harder than the Champions League, because not because of the quality of the teams, but because of
it's a long tournament, isn't it?
Surrounding it.
It's awkward.
So I just want that not there next season. I just don't want that to be a Thursday night awkwardness next season. I want us to win the Europa League, get into the Champions League with the expectations that we know we're not going to win the Champions League next year, and actually we might only get to, the second group stage, which goes you to a qualification game, and then maybe go out at that point. That's absolutely fine. We were back in it. We played enough games, so commercially we're putting some money back in the pocket that we can invest. But we're not playing Thursday nights, and it's a bit of a test for the manager. But I just won't get rid of Thursday nights. I absolutely hate Thursday night football. Not because I disrespect the Europa League, because look, last year, I mean, we've seen teams in recent years like Liverpool, Bayer Leverkusen, Barcelona all in the Europa League. The Europa League is, at times, especially when teams was dropping down, can be just as competitive as the Champions League in terms of the quality of the teams in it. So I'm not disrespecting it. It's just merely the Thursday night that I don't like. I think I would like us just to go into the summer, have a full summer under the new manager, focus not on commercial rubbish, but focus on development. Whether that means we stay in the UK and we say no to America or China, wherever, we just, knuckle down and we get a really good. We've got no international football this year, which will be a plus sign. And then we go into next year and we improve slowly with them extra training session that you get each week until later on in the season, when you lose that because there's obviously the fixtures become a bit more congested. And I think so a lot of ways, I think Eric Ten Hag was hard done to by that, because he lost the summer in a lot of ways because of the Euros. Quite a lot of his players was, I mean, and not only that, Copa America was on as well, wasn't it? So he lost his South American players, like Ganacho, players like that, to international football. We've then come into the season, and because we are in Europa League, there's lost that extra training session in the week because of, and I think that hasn't helped. I'm not saying that that's to blame, because it isn't, but it doesn't help, So I think it's really important for us to focus. Have an 18-month plan. Like I say, 7th in the league is realistic. If we get top 4, absolutely amazing. We'll be buzzing as a fan base, and we'll be bantering every single team, including Man City, because of what the manager's achieved. But realistically, like I say, 7th in the league. If we pick another cup up, especially the Europa League, I'm happy, and there's no reason we can't progress in the FA. I'd like us to progress in the FA Cup and the League Cup. Three finals in 2 years for Eric Ten Hag tells us that we can progress as a team to the later stages of these cups. Regardless, I mean, people are saying, you've got Spurs, you're out in the next round. But we beat Liverpool and Man City to win the FA Cup. So,
it's a cup game.
Doesn't bother me having Spurs. Yeah, beating us 3-0 stings, but it doesn't bother me, because we've beaten better teams to make the finals in the past 2 years. So I think just a nice push everywhere, some stability in the league. I'm happy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great word as well to end it on. Stability, I think, is what we need. We need patience, as Adam says. We've said that a lot tonight. Be very interesting. Apparently tomorrow is the day that Amarim's it's all gonna get announced and agreed and whatnot. But I'm sure Barry will cover more about that on Sunday after the hopefully a Chelsea win. But boys, Daz, where can people find you on social media? Where can they find your controversial views? Where can people find you, Daz?
I'm over on TikTok. That's Stay Controversial, and obviously I'll be here midweek. You
will indeed. How about you, Adam? Where can people find you, buddy?
Also on TikTok, handles there if you want to come and find me. I do occasionally go onto X as well, but that whole platform terrifies me with some of the stuff that's posted on there, so I try and avoid it at the best of times. But yeah, TikTok's mainly where I haunt.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, boys. I've enjoyed it. It's been a good chat. Thanks to chat for filling up with comments and getting involved. We love all that. As I said earlier, that's something that me and Daz are going to try and involve in the shows a little bit more, getting sort of the chats interaction with us a little bit more. MC, appreciate it, buddy. And as I say, Barry will be back on Sunday about the Chelsea game. So enjoy it. Enjoy Halloween, whatever you do. And stay safe. Take care, everyone. Take it easy.